and welcome to part 2 of our lesson looking at media regulation. So I'd like to talk to you now about the classification process. So what the BBFC does once it has received a film. So films we know are produced with a particular target audience in mind, but it's only once they've been made that they are submitted to the BBFC. At this point then, it's the role of at least 2 compliance officers, and they will watch the film and any associated material, and they will then judge that using their criteria to approve an age rating. Now, in order to do this, they need to look at some specific issues. So they will look through things such as violence. They'll look at sex, the language that's used, drugs, whether there is behaviour in there that might be imitated, so imitable behaviour, discrimination, aspects of horror and threat. So they look at these different areas, but when they do that, they also consider them within the context of the film. They have to think about the tone, whether this is something that is socially realistic, whether it is something that is fantasy-based and fantastical, it's very exaggerated, whether it's comical. And they will also look at the impact that they think that these different areas of the film would have on an audience. When they've done that and they've decided on a rating, they will publish information on their website. And they will also release a very short description and an age rating logo that will then be released and published on any of the promotional material linked to the film. Now, I'm going to give it a couple of example films now, just to show you how they might consider different categories. And then I'm going to ask you to have a go yourself to look at some film trailers and see if you can put them into a film classification category. Okay, so the first film that I want to discuss here is Batman, The Dark Knight. Now, I've chosen this film because there was some controversy around the rating given to the film at its time of release. Now, it's always worthwhile thinking about this as a genre film. It's a superhero movie, features an iconic comic book character. It's part of a franchise. So there's many Batman films that have come out prior to this that have been rated at a 12, and in fact one at least was a PG rating. However, The Dark Knight was part of a new sequence of Batman movies, and as we can see from the write-up from the BBFC here, they say that it contains strong fantasy violence and sustained threat. Now, their thinking was that if they go for a higher rating, then they're going to receive quite a lot of complaints, actually, because the typical audience for this, so perhaps young teens, older teens and adults, there might be a significant number of the audience who would not be able to go and see it in a cinema if they heightened the age rating. And they felt that it was justifiable that it could receive a lower rating. Now, the reason they gave for this really was that although there was violence, they didn't focus too much on the impact of that violence. There certainly wasn't any blood or lots of gore. So they felt that it could work within the 12 category. However, there were complaints made about this. I think it received over 500 complaints, which is a pretty high number in comparison to other films. And it was also discussed in Parliament. There were many MPs at the time who complained that this age rating was unsuitable. They cited things like gratuitous violence throughout it, as well as the threat of the Joker. They said as a villain, this was somebody who wasn't, one of these exaggerated, quite comic villains that we might have seen in previous Batman films, but they felt that this was someone who was truly evil and conveyed a real sense of threat throughout this film. So the BBFC looked at the film again and they upheld their category. They said that they still felt that it could be a 12, despite the audiences kind of disagreeing with them on this. So that remains quite an interesting film to look at in terms of classification, where actually a large percentage of the audience, even the government, disagreed with the regulator in terms of the rating it was given. Okay, another example then is Deadpool, and not in the least because on the BBFC website there is a case study around Deadpool, so there's lots of information about it. But I've chosen it because it also fits within the superhero genre. It links nicely to the Batman text we've just discussed and now set text of Black Panther. But we know from the comic books that Deadpool is designed to be rather an outrageous and more, mature comic book character, one that pushes the boundaries of what we would expect of the conventions of comic books. And it also, as it states here, features strong violence, strong language, and references of a sexual nature as well. So why have I included this one? Well, I want to kind of look at, why is this one not a 12 like other superhero movies, and also why is it not even higher than a 15, an 18 rating? And there's some significant factors that mean it stays where it is. Now, despite the 15 age rating, it was still the most complained about film of 2016, because of the violence and the adult themes that come through. The BBFC then state that, unlike other superhero movies, it does have a stronger focus on violence. There is blood, there is injury, that features more heavily. However, they also note that there are some mitigating factors. Now, these are significant for the film because it's not just the content that's important, but the tone. And they say that this is an outrageous type of humour. It's supposed to have a comic tone, and that comes through not only in the script, but in the editing, in the music, the fact that it regularly breaks the fourth wall. So it talks, Deadpool, we know as a character, talks directly to the audience. It recognises itself as a film, as a construct, and plays around and parodies these ideas. So the tone here is important because that stops it from being a serious, violent, graphic film that we might therefore expect to have an 18 rating, and it keeps it at a 15. Now, if we compare the categories, we can see the difference between just those two areas of language and violence at a 12A and a 15. So at a 12A, there may be moderate bad language, but it all depends on the manner in which it's used, who is using it, and it probably is quite low frequency in the text as a whole. If we look across to the 15 bracket, there may be strong language, we're told. In fact, very strong language may be permitted. So, again, depending on the manner in which it's used. So we can see clearly then that Deadpool is more suitable for the older category. And also looking at violence, in a 12, there may be moderate violence, but it says there should not dwell on the detail. There should be no emphasis on injuries or on blood. Whereas in a 15, the violence may be strong, although it's unlikely to feature the strongest gory images. There may well be more evidence of kind of graphic violence. Now, interestingly, looking at Deadpool, some of the issues that come up that, again, keep it from a 12, not just violence, but language, uses the F word over 50 times. So that we can see is more than just moderate bad language. We can see that there is some graphic violence. I mean, I think in one bit they mention there is a decapitation, although we only see this implied, and we don't see any graphic detail after the fact. So that allows it to be a 15, not an 18. So there are a number of factors that they really have to consider quite carefully. Now, interestingly, in America, they use a different rating system, and Deadpool was awarded an R rating, and that is the highest rating it can receive. Now, this obviously impacts on who can see it in an audience and who it's recommended for. So on the release of Deadpool 2, or after the release of Deadpool 2, it was decided that a new cut, another version of the film would be made that would be able to be viewed by younger audiences in the cinema. Now, this is a clever marketing strategy. It's definitely designed to increase profit. So they create this edited version called Once Upon a Deadpool. This is to be released just before Christmas. And in America, they are successful in doing this. The MPAA say that it can be awarded a PG-13 certificate, meaning that their parents are urged to be cautious. There may be some material not appropriate for pre-teenagers, but it means that the younger audience, who are definitely going to be enticed by, the behaviour and the comedy of a Deadpool, are allowed to go and see it in a cinema. When it comes to the UK, however, the BBFC don't agree with this. They say that despite the editing, for them, Deadpool still fits a 15 age-rated film. So we can see here that there is some clear differences in the perception of suitability of films and in the ways in which that they will be categorised and the rules will be applied depending on the country that they've been released in. Okay, over to you. I'd like you to have a look at the BBFC website. On the menu bar at the top, you can click on the category that says Education, and that will take you to a new page. On the left-hand side of the screen, you'll find the student guide. If you click on that, that will take you to a page where you can rate a trailer. And if you click on that, there is a really good task to help you engage with regulation. I would recommend that you pick a couple of films, at least two, to watch the trailer and then complete this form, and you can see it on screen. So you're being asked to look at the different categories that the officers in the BBFC would have to look at. So you might want to choose some films of a different genre. I know there's a horror film on there, there's action, there's like a historical drama, a thriller. If you choose some different genres, and then just tick the boxes to say what kinds of themes can you spot that might be problematic for them in terms of their regulation and age rating, and then can you decide what age rating you think it should have. Once you've done that, it will then take you to another screen which will reveal to you how that film was classified, and then what issues that they picked up, so you can compare your interpretation to theirs. And it's just a really useful way to think about how these rules are applied to film. Okay, once you've done that, you should already then be on the BBFC website. So I'm going to encourage you now to write a summary. Starting with the video, what do you know about film regulation? What have you learned today? And then add to it with some information from our set texts. I'd like you to search for Black Panther and I, Daniel Blake on their website. Look at the age ratings that have been given to them. And you might want to do a little write-up of what that age rating involved, a little summary. You might want to think about what the difference is. So what age rating did Black Panther receive? In fact, you might even want to check what it was rated in America to compare the two. For I, Daniel Blake, there's actually a case study on the website, BBFC website. So you might want to have a read through that and look at how they found it challenging maybe to apply some of the criteria. And then branch outwards from that. Have a look at the packaged media DVD covers for each one? Can you find them and look at where the classification has been displayed? Also have a look at the trailers again. Where do we see the age ratings displayed on the trailers, at what point? And are their trailers perhaps different to the films themselves? And we know that media producers will often do this. They'll have a lower rating for the trailer, so it can be broadcast on television. It can be shown before a wider range of films in the cinema, for example. So have a look for those kind of differences. So this is your bit of investigation. You can write this up. You can handwrite it up if you like, take a photo of it, put it on to show my homework for me. You could type it up and then email me a version of it to my school email address. Okay, so a little bit of time spent investigating that for yourselves. Send me what you've got and I will upload our second lesson on media regulation later in the week. Bye!